Good day, everyone. My name is Leslie Kitty Manipol, and I am here to present this article titled Learning Amid Crisis, EFL Students' Perception on Online Learning During COVID-19 Outbreak, made by Kasifur Rahman. The advent of information technology has made it possible for language learners to communicate synchronously and asynchronously via the internet for virtual classes and has made burgeoning offers of online learning across various platforms. Online learning has also characterized the new generation learning. More and more higher education institutions worldwide have been adopting online learning to cross the boundaries of brick-mortar classrooms, and Indonesian higher education is no exception to this. Now let's move on to the background study of this research. The outbreak of novel coronavirus disease COVID-19 started in Wuhan, China, has brought about a sudden shift of learning mode worldwide into full online learning to prevent human-to-human transmission. As stated by political and institutional policies, online learning supports both physical and social distancing campaigns. At the same time, a variety of learning platforms such as Google Classroom, Schoology, Edmodo, Zoom, cloud meeting, and the use of social media such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and they have been commenced by the educational institution of various levels to compensate for the suspended face-to-face classroom interaction. The appeal to online learning development existed before the outbreak in the form of distance online learning, massive online course or MOOC, and blended learning or a combination of traditional and online learning. All of which bring potentials to the future learning. Studies on blended learning, for instance, demonstrated that such type of learning contributed to learning in terms of significant language, skill development, and improved learning environment, and foster learning motivation. However, the use of technology-mediated instruction will not be successful when the students do not perceive it as meaningful and helpful. Furthermore, in the case of COVID-19 outbreak, most university students learn at home, thus meet challenges that are likely dreadful and provide tensions as the students go back to their hometown, and often their home is quite remote from the business and political center. So the sudden shift toward unlimited online classes primarily in Indonesian context has several trade-offs, including limited access to the internet and hitches during online communication. Now let's move on to the research objectives. Beside the inquiry on students' perceptions of online learning in the context of crisis or pandemic has been a little attention. Therefore, this paper investigated tertiary EFL students' overall perception of the use of online learning during COVID-19 pandemic by addressing the following question or the following objective. What are the EFL students' perceptions of online learning amidst COVID-19 pandemic in terms of usefulness, ease of use, and instructor characteristics? Now let's move on to the theoretical framework. Here are some of the theories used in this research or the studies. Many studies also adapted the technology acceptance model as their theoretical framework. This model centers upon how the users of technology perceive the usefulness and the ease of using the technology that will affect their attitudes towards it, or the students' attitudes toward it. Nonetheless, when linked to teaching and learning online, teaching is a matter of technology and people getting involved, especially the teachers. Different theories such as behaviorism, cognitive psychology, and constructivism is involved in the study. However, these different theories on learning may contribute to the practice of online learning, as illustrated by Ali, one of the researcher mentioned in the study. Teaching about facts can be accommodated by behaviorist strategies. Teaching principles and processes on how can be attributed to cognitive strategies and constructivist strategies may also be used to teach real-life application and contextual learning. Besides, instead of well-established theory, current online learning necessities a learning model that can identify its key variables or constructs, which later can be used to build a theory of learning. Now let's move on to the next one, asynchronous and synchronous, as well the collaborative and independent. By and large, online learning can be categorized based on the communication type, which is asynchronous and synchronous, and the person involved in this interaction or medium, collaborative and independent. Asynchronous communication is depicted by a one-way and non-interactive real-time communication in which the instructors provides reading material, playable lecture videos, assigned tasks, and assessment in a manageable time frame. While simultaneously, the synchronous type requires a dynamic real-time communication between instructors and students, or between the students and their peers through live chat, stream video, or video conferencing. Apart from this, online interaction in online learning can be multidimensional, which entails student to student, teacher to student, student to content, content to content, and teacher to content interaction in order to achieve an adequate level of deep and meaningful learning. Moving on to the research method, this study or this research administered a survey to 125 students of English language education program in the State Islamic University in West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia, using 26 items of a questionnaire with a 5-point Likert scale. This study unraveled students' responses in terms of 3 constructs, including perceived usefulness or PU, perceived ease of use PEOU, and perceived instructor characteristics or PIC. To garner the intended data, a questionnaire of 26 questions item was distributed to the participants. The questionnaire was mostly developed based on Technology Acceptance Model or TAM by Van Ketish and Davis year 2000 to measure students' perception of 2 primary constructs, including perceived usefulness PU and perceived ease of use PEOU. As part of the research method, several questionnaire items were also modified to suit the need of the research. The questionnaire itself employed a 5-point Likert scale to entails 1 as strongly disagree, 2 to disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, and 5 strongly agree. To supplement the analysis and quantitative data, a small-scale interview was also addressed to several respondents. Moving on to the findings of this research, the study's findings suggested that in terms of PU, even though the data mostly demonstrated neutral responses for most of the questionnaire items, the students tended to perceive online learning as to provide flexible time for their learning and foster their autonomy, independence, and confidence. However, they to perceive online learning as less facilitating for their understanding of subjects. In terms of PEOU, the responses reflected the students' readiness to employ online learning as the data suggested they possess both the technology and the knowledge to use it. However, they tended to encounter problems when operating the technology, especially concerning the internet connection. On the other hand, students perceive PIC or perceived instructor characteristics as mostly positive. Here is where the instructor's role shines. The instructor used interpersonal negotiation to facilitate effective learning. Overall, the respondents perceived their instructors as friendly, motivating, encouraging, and facilitative. This was indicated by the instructor's awareness of the circumstance under which their students were learning. The instructors communicated with their students about what and how to learn. Meanwhile, they did not guess things complicated and did not provide overloading tasks. They provide immediate feedback to queries, although providing feedback based on individual inquiry was meticulous. To sum up everything, or to sum up the study's findings, demonstrated that while the students perceive online learning as useful during the pandemic, they also thought that online learning was ineffective. This polarized perception is probably since they were not accustomed to fully online learning, despite their previous engagement in classes that use blended learning during the face-to-face interaction. The students' most problematic situations were their poor understanding of the materials delivered online and technical problems in terms of internet connection and operation. Apart from this, the students mostly showed a positive attitude towards instructor characteristics. Therefore, these research findings prompt a wake-up call for instructors to immediately change the situation to better engage the students by redefining and redesigning their teaching to facilitate more meaningful and positively perceived lessons. And as we conclude this research, online learning seemed to have not been designed to engage all students, yet seemed to be an inevitable option during the outbreak. Additionally, face-to-face classes were still preferred over online learning. Therefore, these findings imply the need for redesigning online learning to better engage students in virtual classes. That will be all. Thank you so much for listening and for attention.